Welcome to episode 35, Scam Alert. Influencer marketing will sink your business.
Welcome to the PR Playbook podcast with Ranjini Joshua, the only podcast that teaches you how to strategically navigate the world of public relations and social media and grow a powerful brand.
Hello and welcome to episode 35. Today I'm excited to interview Jim Malcolm, a tech industry chief marketing officer who's created over 100 campaigns and strategies on various consumer B2B product segments, including software as a service offerings. We were actually having a conversation about the state of the media last week, and we touched base on ideas around influencer marketing and if they're really effective. And that's when Jim pretty much told me, no, hell no. Jim, thank you for joining me today on the PR Playbook podcast to talk about why influencer marketing is basically a scam.
Thanks. It's great to be here. I look forward to digging into this with you a little bit.
Yeah, I did. It surprised me that you said it, and I'm glad you did, because I think, we actually have a podcast on influencer marketing strategies. So it's good to hear the other side of the fence here. So before we get into this really interesting and different perspective that I really love to explore, can you give me a quick rundown and introduction for your background and yourself and what you're doing and all that stuff?
Sure, absolutely. So I have a 20-year marketing career that spans everything from consumer products with companies like Sony Electronics into the imaging industry with Ricoh and Pentax, which are camera companies. And then I've been recently innovating the AR and VR industry with a company called Humanized Technologies based out of Israel. Now, over the years, I've had the opportunity to work with mega celebrities like Steven Tyler, professional athletes, including Peyton Manning, YouTube sensations like Casey Neistat, and micro-influencers, in fact, dozens of micro-influencers who have small followings, but really relevant audiences.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So this is going to be even more interesting now that you've said that. Let's get right to it. So what is your perspective on influencer marketing? What is the angle? What is the thing that you think that people shouldn't do to promote their businesses and consumer products?
So if you don't mind, I'm just going to jump on my soapbox for a minute and
yeah.
I'll punch out a few things and then we can dig in a little bit deeper. So at first, what I want to say is too many marketers are confusing influencer marketing with what I call content marketing.
Right.
Now, this is evident because if we look how loosely defined this whole world of influencer marketing is, you have things like micro-influencers, which have really small followings, right? Blog influencers who tend to write. Key opinion leaders, so not to throw another acronym out there, right? But the KOLs. Social media influencers, which is, I think most people think of when they hear about social media. Yeah. And heck, let's toss in celebrity influencers into that mix too.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Now, I'm going to just kind of layer some of the onion here and we can dig in, right? So the next piece I want to add to that is at any of those levels, when you look at follower counts and keywords, for the most part, they're not audited, right? There's not a unified body that is kind of validating, much like traditional media has, to work through those evaluations.
Sure.
And I'm going to further complicate that by saying the networks, including Facebook and Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, all of them, are using algorithms to determine which posts should be displayed in which feed and why. Mm-hmm. So in theory, you may believe you have an influencer that's giving you a reach of 1 million potential audience, but in reality, maybe 1% to 5% are ever going to see a post.
Right.
So I want to add on to that, again, I'm putting a lot of complications in the story here, right?
Layer it on.
Is that where there are companies that are using influencers, and this is the stuff that kind of really gets underneath my skin, is they're choosing the wrong influencers or they're choosing them for the wrong reasons. Mm-hmm. And often what I see are companies or product owners that are taking a shotgun approach. You're going out to a lot of different people trying to get their message out, and often they end up abandoning what's working. Like they're not paying attention. And it's because they're leaving their brand up to the influencer to define their brand. In other words, they're trying to use the influencer as an agency. And if they fail to monitor that process and control what's created, you can very quickly erode or damage your brand, or worse yet, run into legal issues around failure to disclose sponsored content or paid influencers. So it's really ugly. And when you combine it all together, it leads to big brand trouble, needless financial losses. And this is the whole kind of enormity that needs a solution.
And I think actually now that you're saying this, we're talking about it out loud. I've obviously had some thoughts around this because I like this topic. Yeah, I mean, when I first started working with YouTube influencers, maybe, I don't know, 10 years ago, they're sitting there and they're telling us, well, I need to figure out how this is going to be authentic to my brand and how is it going to fit into my life. So you're at the mercy of these, whoever they are, YouTube, social, celebrity, to see how it fits into their life when we're paying them, an incredible amount of money for a 30-second spot to see how it fits into their life, which may not necessarily address my normal consumer. It's just something that I think, I'm kind of hoping big with a big H, capital H, hoping that it will generate a ton of revenue for me. But with most of these influencers, if it's not authentic to my brand, well, we want to be authentic to our brand too, as far as me being an agent for our client. So I do see that you're talking about this kind of self-interest for a lot of these social influencers. And I think that's when we miss the boat. It's like, okay, well, if you have that much self-interest where you don't see that this is some kind of collaboration and we actually selected you for a reason, and that goes into whole talking about selecting the right people. There's a host of different issues here, right? And so I do think, people spend, like this one influencer in particular. I was working with a small company called Monster Energy, and we were reaching out to YouTube influencers. And this one particular influencer said, hey, you got to give me 25 grand, and then I'm going to put your product in my video however I see fit.
Yeah. It's crazy, right?
Yeah. I mean, needless to say, we did not do that. So I just want to put that out there, but we didn't do it. But that's what you're at mercy to. And then I feel like they create this dynamic where it feels like, oh, I've got to be in there. I've got to be in there as a brand. You're thinking, oh, I've got to be in there. I've got to reach this person. They're going to get all my people. And at the end of the day, it doesn't do anything for you. It just loses you 25 grand.
That's right.
And like you said, it could be detrimental. And I like that idea. Like what have you seen, or can you point to some examples of like, what happens when you pick the wrong thing, wrong person?
Well, if you're lucky, it's just a financial loss, right? Because what you're doing is that, okay, fine, I'm not going to see a return on that investment. My CFO is going to be unhappy with me when it comes time to review my KPIs. Like, that's the best outcome of making a bad decision.
Yeah.
The real damaging work comes when you start having long-term brand impact or negative impact for your brand. And maybe your brand starts to align with an activity or a thought or an individual that your brand isn't going to value. The majority of your customers are not going to value or look up to. So the costs to overcome a mistake from a social statement can take years, weeks, months, centuries to overcome a misstep. So it's a high risk game when you let somebody talk about your brand in their voice.
Yeah. And I think when you put it in that perspective, people aren't thinking deeply enough about it. They're just thinking, oh, this person has 25,000 followers. I want to get those people. But do you really know who those people are? Or, what has this person been saying for the last 2 months? What have they been talking about other than the fact that you want to promote your brand with them? And I think that's where people go wrong. They definitely don't think deeply enough about the background of the influencer. Now, I want to dig deeper into this, and I'd like to know, obviously it's great to know stuff when you're getting it wrong, but what is your suggestion? Like, it doesn't sound like you're totally ruling out influencer marketing. So what is your recommendation here? Like, what is the right process to integrate an influencer program, whoever it may be, into your marketing campaign?
Yeah, so great question. Let's say you do want to invest some money into social marketing, social media. It doesn't really matter what the channel is. So first, let me say, let's be clear. Although I'm not a fan of what's termed influencer marketing, I do believe strongly in social media, right? So both paid and unpaid, as a channel, there is still value to invest in the channels where the consumer is looking for information, is looking to buy, is closest to the point of purchase, is a trusted source for information, all of that type of stuff. So by no means am I saying, do we close the door on social media? However, I do challenge this idea of influencer marketing. And if it's invested properly, that money that you're going to spend, you can not only get a good ROI that makes sense for you and your brand, but also, again, back to your CFO, they're going to love you because it's going to transact into profitable business.
Right.
But that in order to invest wisely, you need to be able to maintain the discipline of marketing or the science of marketing in your house. So you need to be able to define your brand, identify your target markets, and determine the relevant media channels to deliver your message. If you pass that responsibility to an influencer, it is simply a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
So the role of brand management, whether it's done in-house or with an agency partner, is more important than ever. The solution is being able to curate content that you own, that your brand owns, that adds brand value to your company and becomes a long-term asset. It's about branding and positioning and growing your company, not branding and positioning an influencer who is using your amazing products to build their brand.
Totally. Yeah.
Right? It's about
we forget that, right? It works the opposite way as well.
That's right. And it's too easy to forget or overlook, like, hey, I need some immediate sales. I need some immediate exposure. Okay. But again, at what cost? And don't lose sight that as a brand owner, we have responsibility to own our brand and activate that messaging through specific channels. One channel will be social. There's no doubt about it. You can't ignore social channels today. That's always going to be part of your media mix. But if you do the work, this is where you can bring in, and I'll add another term to all of this, which is affiliate marketing. And then that's how you can use all of these things we've talked about so far to manage your social presence and your social media, and ultimately what value you would get out of a influencer campaign, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you introduced that affiliate marketing. And I've actually been recommending that quite a bit over the last couple years, because I'm seeing, if you haven't seen, or haven't noticed, you look at a lot of media, they are doing affiliate marketing pretty actively. And of course they are aware that they have to make that known. So you can see sometimes at the bottom of a gift guide or something like that, it says, this may or may not be part of an Amazon affiliate program, which I'm going to guess it's probably more likely it will be part of an Amazon affiliate program. But Amazon is not the only affiliate game out there. And I think affiliate marketing is a really interesting angle to take. How do you think people should prepare? And I guess first let's ask this question. What kind of companies can implement an affiliate marketing program into their mix?
And I'll tell you for the long pauses, because the immediate answer is any company.
Right, of course.
Okay. It doesn't really matter whether you're a B2B play, a SaaS infrastructure, a consumer product, and it can be a very, very well thought out, in-depth affiliate program, or it could be an unofficial affiliate program. And I'll point to the unofficial, and I'm using that with a little hesitation in my language, only because it's an interesting case study to look at, and that is Tesla. So Tesla cars are not inexpensive, although you can get them as low as 50 grand, 40 grand maybe,
40, yeah.
on up to $130,000, $150,000, right? So they're expensive cars. However, anybody who buys a Tesla vehicle, also in your welcome kit, you receive an affiliate link or a referral link, as they call it, that if somebody buys a Tesla and gives your name for the referral, then you get 1,000 miles of electric charging at their superchargers around the country.
Great.
Okay. Now, if you get into the e-vehicle space, you start looking at Tesla as a whole. To drive 1,000 miles through their supercharger network is maybe about $50 worth of electricity.
Right. But it feels like a lot.
Yeah, exactly. But the number of people that will they start a conversation and says, "Oh my God, I love your car. How do you like your Tesla? Oh, I love my Tesla. It's fantastic. It does this, this, and this. Hey, if you're going to buy one, use my referral link because I'll get 1,000 miles of supercharging."
Yeah.
Right. Now they're not doing that because they're going to get $50 worth of electricity. No. Right. If you can afford a $50,000 or $100,000 car, It's not about the money. It's a way to activate their brand pride, right? To say, look at me, I'm a Tesla owner. I can represent this brand and give myself some value by telling you to go buy one of these expensive cars.
They're gamifying it, very much so.
Absolutely. And so when we talk about affiliates programs, it can go from that, all the way into things like Purple Mattress has got an amazing affiliates program that you push traffic back to their store and you make money along the way. And I can talk much more about that and the benefits of affiliate programs as time goes on here.
Yeah, we'll have to do a separate podcast just on affiliate marketing. But I think I really love that perspective, and I really love that you've introduced it in the social aspects too, because it is very much a social event. In that case, it could be anyone. It doesn't have to be, somebody with a lot of influence on Instagram or somebody on TikTok. I feel like social media marketing should really just be a social activity for anybody in your target audience. Don't you think?
That's right. And if you've done the right job of targeting and you're delivering an organic, genuine message, then by default, you will get the exposure and the pass on and the recommendations because you are authentic and you are delivering. Now, that's not to say that it's easy, right? So if you want to dig into some of like the work that needs to be done, there's at least 5 steps that you got to go through to do it right.
Well, I was actually just going to ask you, are there any steps to really make sure you do it right? This is perfect. Perfect timing.
There you go. Well, hey, yes. So I'm going to break it down into 5 pieces.
Great.
Okay. So step number 1 is 100% on the brand owner's shoulders. And that is to define your brand, define your product, and define your value proposition, right? You have to answer why and the who cares in the process. And that's your responsibility. You cannot pass that responsibility off to an affiliate or an influencer. And since we started this conversation with influencer, I'll put that line back in there because you need to own your brand. Influencers will come and go, but your brand will be with you forever. Yeah. So that's number 1. Number 2 comes the hard work. And this is where I think the majority of companies fall down. And that is creating the content. Creating the content can be expensive. It can be frustrating. It can be nerve-wracking. It can be hard. But depending on your segment and the market that you are working towards, it can be something as simple as a white paper or a quick start guide or an out-of-box video. A how-to, right? It might be something as like pretty pictures. It could be a video, or it could just be defining words that define your brand.
Don't overcomplicate it and make some content.
That's right. Make content, right? I remember when I was looking at even putting my own personality online and talking online. You read a lot of advice that says, "Hey, don't sit there and overanalyze it." Because you'll always find a problem with it, right? Make something and be ready to move with it.
Yeah.
So invest in content is step number 2. because that's what's needed to fuel later on. So step 3 then is build your affiliate network. Now that your affiliate network may include these individuals that refer to themselves as influencers. But rather than going to an influencer with, hey, I'll pay you $25,000 to put my brand on there, you go to them and say, I have a very clear definition of my brand and my product. I've identified you as an individual or a channel that can help me reach that target. And your earning potential is unlimited because as you get the message out, then I'm going to pay you every time somebody buys.
Awesome. Yeah.
And because you're handing them all of the assets and then they're going to put their flavor on it, then you're going to benefit a few different things. One is consistency of message because all of your affiliates will be saying the same thing. Mm-hmm. Second of all, you're going to still be able to maintain that, but each of these influencers, if they're worth their weight in salt, will be able to customize the message or optimize the message for their audience.
I like the word
which will drive sales.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now it does require them to put a little bit of skin in the game, but that's the direction this industry has to go. Writing a blank check for a miscellaneous post has got to end.
Well, and don't they say if you don't have skin in the game, then it's not worth it anyway? Right?
That's right. And anybody who has skin in the game knows that they're going to show up and they're going to be prepared.
Yeah.
So let me point to the next phase of all of this, which is once you get that affiliate network built and going, now you got to get the word out. And in the past, you might think, well, it's the influencer's responsibility to get the word out. Well, yes and no. Yes, it's their responsibility to go out to their audience, but it's your responsibility to go out and promote the affiliates to your audience. Now, I'm going to pick on the photo industry or camera industry because I know it very well. And I will point to Nikon, Canon, and Sony, which are all brands that your listeners probably know of. But they're a really good example in the imaging industry about affiliate influencer marketing. Each one of them have brand affiliates and what they refer to as brand ambassador. Now, Sony calls them artisans, Nikon calls them ambassadors, and Canon calls them explorers of light. Regardless of how each of those companies have defined their ambassadors, they meaning the brand, controls their identity, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So the equity of being an artisan, yes, can help prop up the influencer, but more importantly, adds brand value to Sony. Right? Because there's some cachet to say, yes, I'm an artisan or I'm an explorer of light. But the brand value goes back to Canon or Sony in those cases as the brand that is making their creative processes possible.
Right.
Okay. So, which this then leads right into step 5, which is move the conversation back to your owned properties, right? So now I've got my influencers out there. I got my associates. They've been all fed with the information. They're all communicating to the market. Now I've got to bring that back to my property, back to my website, because that's what I care about is how many people are going to come to my site and learn from me or buy from me or engage with me.
Right.
Now, the way that I would do that, and again, I'm going to just stick with that photo example, is I can put out a press release. Right? I can put out a press release that says, this weekend, the Explorers of Light are going to be presenting how to do a portrait, or the artisans are going to be showing a lifestyle, whatever it is. But now I start to take an online property, build it into a communication strategy that drives traffic and awareness and interest to those affiliates, all of which who have a vested interest in coming back to the brand for purchase.
Yeah. Yep.
Right. So it's this giant piece of PR, and maybe it's advertising, maybe it's highlighting, maybe it's having them attend or support trade shows when we get back to trade shows someday. And something as simple as links into your brand website. So let's say I have 100 influencers that are out there. I want all 100 of them to have a link from their websites and their properties back into my corporate brand, because that helps me with SEO, right? The search engine optimization, when I get more relevant links into my website, because it puts me as the trusted advisor and puts me as the leader.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can, right? And then I can link out to those relevant influencers as well, because there is also brand value for me saying, I'm going to link from my corporate brand to this high-end celebrity or influencer, or quite frankly, even a niche expert that maybe is really good at putting tops on bottoms at a factory level in machine vision, right? Sure. Again, like I said, you can do this all the way across the segment.
Different ways. Yeah. No, this is awesome. Absolutely.
Yeah. So those are kind of the 5 steps I would say to bring them all together. And if you compensate your affiliates correctly or aggressively, they'll put they'll put an emphasis on your product and getting your brand out there. A lot of times I hear people get confused when they start thinking about affiliate marketing. And I'm just going to throw out some numbers out that doesn't really matter. Let's say as a product, I sell it and I usually get 50 points of margin on that product. Sure. And it costs me 40 points of margin to sell it. So I have 10 points of profit. Mm-hmm. Now, my CFO might go, oh, goodness, Jim, you want to pay your influencer more than 10% of the value of the product, you're going to be in a loss position.
Right.
I challenge them to think about it a little bit differently. If I have an effective influencer out there who is delivering my curated brand message, right? My content that I've created, my message that is in line with my brand, I'm paying that influencer to deliver an authentic and unified message instead of paying YouTube or Facebook or really any property, right? It could be the New York Times, it could be NBC, it could be whatever channel it is. It is a different media channel. So I can incent my influencers or affiliates. Again, we're at a weird part of the conversation where what do we really call this network of people? Right. Beyond what the value of that sale brings me, because really what I'm doing is I am moving my budget out of a media bucket and into a new media bucket, which is this affiliate program.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is tied back to sales, which has very clear KPIs against it, which has a very clear return on investment, because I don't have to pay unless that individual performs.
Totally.
Right. So
amazing.
That's it.
I feel like you should stop, because this alone could make or break a brand. And I think this is amazing. Those 5 points really sum it up. I hope whoever is listening takes those 5 points right now and goes and thinks about what they're doing with their marketing program and applies it immediately. And again, try to think outside of exactly what Jim was saying. Obviously, it's, he's giving one example, but this can apply to any market. So really, you have to think broadly about how it could apply to your program. If you're a startup, if you're a tech company, how does it apply to what you're doing? If you're in the enterprise space, how does it apply to what you're doing? And you can actually have these influencers in every kind of space. On a consumer electronics page, it's a little bit more tangible because you're talking consumer electronics, you're talking sales. But from an enterprise space, there's enterprise influencers as well. So just think about who you know, who's in your network, and what makes sense. So try to think of it from a broad perspective. And Jim, thank you so much. This is great, great, great information. Where can people find you so they can hire you?
So the easiest way to find me is on LinkedIn. So linkedin.com/in/Jim Malcolm, all one word. Or if you want to learn more about me, I did stand up my own website. So there is something called jimmalcolm.bio. And you can go there and you can learn all about my background, what I do, and some of my accomplishments. And I would love to work with new and innovative companies.
No, this is amazing. Thank you again. And everybody, thank you for joining us for the PR Playbook podcast on influence. I don't even know. I think we have to rename it. It's not influencer marketing anymore, but thanks for joining us. Jim's information will also be in the show notes. So go check that out on thesilvertelegram.com/the PR Playbook podcast. It should be the first podcast that's up if you're listening to this anytime soon. And thank you again, everyone. I hope you stay safe, stay healthy, and I look forward to seeing more questions about marketing and how we can solve those problems. Have a great day, everybody.